Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
From her rich and fertile valleys to the shores of her icy seas, from her fields and farms and shellfish beds and her many nurseries, for the finest of her flavor, for the freshest by far, choose the things Alaskans bring to the market where you are. Products that we're proud to call our own, and it's all Alaska grown.
The National Weather Service.
Good evening. Welcome to your Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Percy Dehne. This is your weather for August 9, 2016. You can follow us also at weather.gov/Alaska, as well as email us at nws.ar.tvweather@noaa.gov. For tonight, our hazard tonight, it was the same as last night. We have this flood advisory that's been extended along the Ottenweller River. That's through 5:15 p.m. for Wednesday. Started off with a satellite. As I put it in the satellite loop here, you're going to see this strong, big cloud of swath of moisture being pushed in here from Shemya eastward. That's with this strong occluded low pressure system that's pushing into the system, into the eastern bearing here. And then farther north, over the YK Delta region, you have a low pressure system right here with the cyclonic flow. Moisture clouds being wrapped around this. You have the trailing front that's extending through along the just south of the Brooks Range here into the Fairbanks region. This did kick off some thunderstorms this afternoon. Along the southeast, pretty much high pressure that's sitting over this south of the Gulf, the clear skies here, and pretty much a few clouds over the southeast panhandle, but mostly sunny skies. You had some cloud cover here associated here moving on shore, clearing out behind over the south central region. Farther south, there's a weak low pressure system over the Kodiak region with this southwesterly push. It's bringing a swath of moisture up into the Gulf. And then farther north, you have this high pressure sitting over the Arctic, the Beaufort Sea, northeasterly flow. So you're bringing some stratus in this region. And there is a low pressure system sitting over the Arctic village. So that you're getting some moisture being wrapped around in that system as well. And then putting it into loop, again, your northeasterly flow coming down to the Bering Strait. So you'll have continued low stratus in here. And then that'll extend down into the St. Paul region. Today's weather, again, talking about this low pressure system that's sitting in the YK Delta region, that warm front becoming stationary over the Fairbanks region here. Again, isolated thunderstorms with this system, and a low pressure system sitting in the Yukon Territory. The southeast, again, this high pressure 1,032 millibar high that's sitting there in the North Pacific. High pressure ridge extending into the southeast panhandle, so gorgeous conditions here. Here's that weak low pressure system pushing into Kodiak region with southwesterly push and scattered showers with that. Along the Arctic region, you have the low pressure system sitting near Kaktovik, northeasterly flow, some light rain and some fog in there. Along the western Bering, you have this 997 millibar occluded low that's pushing into the region, and you're going to have a strong southwesterly push with a warm front extending through the central Aleutians. So plenty of moisture being pushed into the Bering and along the chain. Tonight's forecast, this occluded low pressure system will continue to fill, and it'll weaken, and then you'll have a continued warm air that's being pushed up into the Bering, and that'll be continued low stratus and light rain in this region here. Farther north along the Seward Peninsula, you're going to have the low pressure system there that's gradually filling, and a weak stationary front extending through the Brooks Range. South of that, you're going to have into the lower Kuskokwim Valley some isolated thunderstorms. In the Gulf, you're going to have that weak low pressure system with that weak trough extending just off the southeast panhandle. Onshore flow, southwesterly flow, so some light rain and scattered rain showers in this region. Wednesday forecast is low pressure system continues to fill. This is the weak trough, and out ahead of it through the lower Kuskokwim Valley, extending eastward just south of the Brooks Range. You'll have continued isolated thunderstorms. Along the Arctic coastline, northeast flow, continued low stratus being brought in there with some light rain and some fog. And then that strong storm force, a cool low pressure system, will start moving eastward into the western Aleutians. So look for gale force winds southwesterly affecting the western chain as well as the western Bering. The southeast, you're going to have that low pressure system continue to fill and onshore flow, so continued scattered showers there. And pretty much all southwesterly flow extending up from Kodiak all the way up into the south central region. So onshore flow here continued, and you'll have continued light rain in that region. Thursday forecast, that strong occluded low will continue to move into the Bering, trailing the occluded front extending into the eastern Aleutians with a warm front south into the North Pacific. Southwesterly flow out ahead of that. So pretty much for the northern Gulf and southeast panhandle, you'll have this high southwesterly push of warm air and light rain continuing in low stratus, pretty much blanking the whole south central and southeast panhandle. And just south of the Dixon entrance, you'll have that high pressure ridge with clear skies in that condition. Farther north, near Kotzebue, you'll have that extending weak stationary front extending over just east of the Fairbanks region. And now just south of that, it'll continue to isolated thunderstorms and scattered showers along the Arctic coastline. Temperatures as of 2 p.m. today, you can see along the chain, you're going to have pretty much in the upper 50s, 61 there at Stand Point. And then going into the southwest, you'll have a continued that southwesterly push, and you're going to have warmer air there. Pretty much all temperatures. You had Cape Newnham coming at 53, Bethel at 59. Along the southeast panhandle, you had pretty much all upper 50s to lower 60s, 64 there at Klowak, and 64 at Skagway. Temperatures farther north, again, makes sense. There's cooler since you're farther north with the cooler air coming off the Beaufort Sea. Pretty much 41 at Kaktovik and low 41 at Barrow. As you go farther along the southwest coastline, 59 there at Kotzebue, 61 at Selawik, and Gamble came in at 48, slightly cooler. And then along the chain, as mentioned before, the Pribilos, St. Paul and St. Matthew, St. George, that is 53. And then along the chains, Adak and Atka, 52, 54, and 52 there at Shemya. Tonight's low temperatures, coolest again along the Arctic coastline. That's going to be in the mid-30s, pretty much predominantly all 50s throughout the southwest interior, extending all the way up into the Yukon Territory there. The southeast panhandle, pretty much all in the mid-50s, 55 at Klowak, 56 at Sitka. And then tomorrow's high temperatures, not surprising, all in the pretty much in the lower 60s to mid 60s, 66 at Arctic Village. Still cooler. The coolest point will be along the Arctic coastline. Barrow coming in at 42. The southeast panhandle pretty much all in the 60s, 66 there at Annette Island. Flying weather, you're going to have IFR to marginal VFR. Again, throughout all the Bering and the chain with this occluded low pressure system that's moving in, just bringing a large swath of moisture with it, so it's not surprising you have pretty poor conditions throughout the Bering and the chain. And then with a southwesterly push, you're going to have it moving into the Norton Sound as well as a little bit of the Kotzebue Sound. And then that northeasterly flow along the Arctic coastline in the morning, you're going to have some low stratus there. Along the northern Gulf and the southeast panhandle, you're going to have marginal VFR conditions. Worst conditions just sitting off the southeast panhandle. And then for the afternoon, you'll have these thunderstorms. That's the biggest change. These with this breaking clouds in the lower Kuskokwim Valley, extending up just north of the Alaska Range. So look for isolated thunderstorms there, and continued IFR to marginal VFR throughout the Bering and the chain, as well as you go to northern Bering. And again, that northeasterly push of cooler air bringing in that low stratus. The marginal conditions, MVFR, will continue to the northern Gulf and the southeast Panhandle. Tomorrow's flying conditions, AKwx, MVFR to VFR, Adigan, MVFR to VFR, and then Lake Clark to Merrill, IFR to marginal VFR, and then just upstream of them, they'll have isolated thunderstorms. And then for rainy IFR to marginal VFR, you'll have some isolated thunderstorms on the western entrance. And then for windy MVFR to VFR, isolated thunderstorms on the north entrance. And Isabel, marginal VFR to VFR, and isolated thunderstorms on the northern entrance as well. Mentaska, marginal VFR to VFR, isolated thunderstorms on the northern entrance. And then Tanita, marginal VFR conditions. Portage, MVFR. Chillicook and White, MVFR to VFR. And then tomorrow's freezing levels, again, the same. You get that swath of 8,000 foot freezing levels here with southwesterly push coming up in the Gulf. And then you have that warm push of warm air with this cool low pressure system. So you're seeing heights of 14 to 16,000. A little cooler, 8,000 feet there with a northeasterly flow with the cooler air along the Arctic coastline, as well as you're going to have the warm push with the high pressure sitting down there in the North Pacific with this southwesterly push here. So warmer temperatures and freezing levels are 8 to 12,000. Tomorrow's icing, above 10,000, you're going to have pretty much the southwest interior along the YK Delta region over to the Seward Peninsula and eastward in the Kotzebue-Norton Sound region, and above 8,000 isolated for the Arctic coastline. Along the southeast Panhandle over to the northern Gulf, you're going to have coastal communities above 11,000. Tomorrow's jet stream, pretty much southwesterly, 100 knots there, approaching the Kamchatka Peninsula, and then it dives northwesterly, 110 knots, and it transitions to that southwesterly push that's bringing all that warmer air and plenty of moisture into the northern Gulf and southeast central region. Farther north, you get that low pressure system sitting over the Beaufort Sea, pretty much westerly flow, and then transitions to southwesterly 80 knots. Along the southeast Panhandle, you're going to have northwesterly flow 50 knots, and then it transitions to southwesterly as you go into the lower 48. Tomorrow's 9,000 foot winds. Cyclonic flow around the low pressure systems, 10 to 15 knots around these low pressure systems sitting over the YK Delta region and the lower Bering Sea. Then the stronger low pressure system, you're going to have southwesterly winds 40 to 45 knots. And then the high pressure sitting over the eastern Siberia, you're going to have northeasterly flow 15 knots. And then over the Gulf, southwesterly push the air, that's your strongest winds, 25 to 35 knots. And then they go westerly at 25 as you go through the southeast Panhandle. And then for tomorrow's 3,000 foot winds, again, a weak flow around the cyclonic flow over here just east of the Seward Peninsula, and then 15 knots to 20 knots around the cyclonic flow around this low pressure just north of Adak. The stronger low pressure system, southwesterly winds 35 coming over Shemya, and then a high pressure again still sitting over the the eastern Siberian region. You're going to have northeasterly flow here, and then transitions to southeasterly flow there going through the Kamchatka Peninsula. Through the Gulf, you're going to have continued southwesterly flow, a little stronger. You get farther south of the Gulf, 30 knots, 25, and then a continued westerly, 20 to 15 knots over the interior of the southeast Panhandle. Tomorrow's turbulence. You're going to have light to occasional moderate, again with below 4,000 along the western Aleutians to Adak. That's with that strong cooling pressure system that's moving into the region, and so that'll affect there. And then for tomorrow, you'll have light to isolated thunderstorms again through the lower Kuskokwim Valley, extending up just north of the Brooks Range, and nothing over the southeast Panhandle. We'll be back after this with your Marines.
The Valdez fly-in started out probably back in the 80s. It became this mecca of short-field takeoff and landing, bush flying, you know, where everybody meets. All the cowboys show up. You know, everybody shows up with their horse, you know.
Okay, welcome everyone. We'll start the safety briefing for the SOL competition. If you have not done it somewhere else, do not do it here first. This is not the time to try the new technique.
This competition prepares pilots for landing off airport. Whenever you're looking for a place to land, you have to be absolutely certain about that spot. You have to be able to touch down at that spot or a little bit later and never before it. So being able to get down exactly where you want and stop as quickly as you can, one is really fun in competition, but two is excellent training for flying supercars.
There's a lot to it that separates some of these guys from just your normal flying around the United States types of pilot. I guess that's why they come and seek me out a little bit. I've been a flight instructor for about 20 years now. Like any kid, whatever his dad does, you probably don't want to do it, but it's the only thing I ever knew. When you're hanging around a bunch of pilots, we have a lot of pride, we talk about, well, I've been flying this airplane for the last 5,000 hours, and I've been in this airplane for 2,000 hours, and I learned to fly when I was 16.
I've been flying since I was about 2 weeks old.
I've been flying since the headset would fit over my little baby head.
I started flying with my father when I was 8 years old.
So I asked my dad one day, I'm like, hey, when was the first time I was in an airplane? And my dad looks at me and he says, son, you were conceived in an airplane.
This will be my 6th year at the Valdez Fly-In, and I've won first place in 4 of the 5 years. We have the T3 tail wheel suspension. You can find that at supercubsnorth.com. In the front here we have the leading edge slats. They help the air stay attached to the wing and help it fly at a high angle of attack. We have a 240 horsepower motor. It cruises around 85 miles an hour, but it climbs out at, better than anything I've ever flown in. Most of the guys that I compete with at Valdez at the STOL competition are seasoned bush pilots that have been around the block for a long, long time. They've seen way more than I'll ever see in my life. So they all give me a hard time about having won in the past. And I just hope that I don't run out of luck here. Because these guys, they are certainly really good, and I don't doubt that they'll come back and get me one day.
All right, you need to do it within 194 feet. You landed. 55 feet, just give them a wave.
I've been flying in Valdez at the competition for about the last 10 years, and it's been great fun, but nothing has ever come close to the amount of pride and fun that I had today getting to compete with my daughter in this event.
I've been coming here with my dad since I was probably an infant, and this year he finally convinced me to compete too.
Laura J. Erb. Her first landing distance was 209 feet, so let's see if she can beat her first landing distance. And yes, that will qualify. All right, Wes, proud dad. Now, let's see, her second landing was 162. Your best landing was, if I remember right, 152? That's close, but I would have to check the numbers. I think she might have beat me this year.
Getting in a Super Cub for the first time is like strapping on a set of wings and see everything from a bird's perspective, and then touch down and get out, and suddenly you're 100 miles from where you last were, or maybe even in a place that nobody's ever been before, and it's just an unreal experience. Flying up in Alaska is a lot different than flying the lower 48 because the weather changes so rapidly, the terrain is much more varied. Having the opportunity to be a pilot in Alaska has really defined who I am as a pilot and who I am as a person.
Welcome back to your Alaska weather. Starting off with the sea ice edge forecast, the continued ice cover throughout the Beaufort Sea and extending into the portions of the Chukchi Sea. The big change here is even though ice looks like it's touching the near Barrow, the sea ice forecaster mentioned that they're able to get through here, so the tugs are able to go farther east as far as they want to Kaktovik if they would like. So that's the big change. And with a northeasterly flow for the next couple days, you'll have continued open waters here, being able to get through along the Arctic coastline. Now starting off Wednesday's southeast marine forecast, the inside waters southerly push here with 15 to 20 knots, wave heights 3 to 4 feet. Outside waters southwesterly flow 20 to 25 knots, and easterly when you get up to Yakutat, and the wave heights will be 7 to 8 feet. For Thursday, the inside waters southerly push 10 to 20 knots, a little stronger near Haines, Skagway area, and then northwesterly as you get closer to the Dixon entrance. Outside waters southwesterly 15 to 20 knots, transitioning to southerly as you get to Yakutat to 20. And then for Wednesday, the south central, you're pretty much through the Prince William Sound region, northeasterly flow 10, 15 knots, you get a little stronger. And then it's light and variable as you go through the Barren Islands and down Shelikof Strait. Over the Cook Inlet, you're going to have southwesterly push 10 knots. And then on the east side of Kodiak Island, you'll have a southerly push of 15. And wave heights will be anywhere from 4 to 6 feet. For Thursday, you're going to have pretty much predominantly all light and variable winds, 10 knots or less, and wave heights will be 2 to 4 feet, a little less as you go farther in the North Cook Inlet there with 1 foot. And then for Wednesday, Alaska Peninsula, southwesterly push, both the Bering and the Pacific side, 15 knots, wave heights 3 to 6 feet. And then for Thursday, variable conditions on the Pacific side, and then southerly to southwesterly there going into Bristol Bay, 10 to 15 knots, and wave heights 4 feet to 2 feet in the Bristol Bay region. Wednesday for the Aleutian Islands, the biggest change here is you're going to have that strong southerly push of 45 knots gale force winds with that strong occlusive system that's starting to move into the western Aleutians. Then it's predominantly all southwesterly push, somewhat southerly there near Dutch, so 20 knots there, but small craft both on the Bering and the Pacific side. Then for Thursday, predominantly all southwesterly, you become small craft just west of Nikolsky, and then it gets stronger to gale force 40 knots there near Shemya, basically from the Red Islands westward. And then Wednesday for the west coast, light and variable along the Nunavik Island region and also extending down to St. Paul and St. George. The northern Bering, northerly flow 25 knots, small craft. And then St. Matthew Island, easterly winds at 25. And then for Wednesday, southwesterly push through the Kuskokwim Bay Delta region, and then you're going to have easterly push through the Gamble or northern Bering there, so that'll be easterly flow 15 knots. The St. Matthew Island, small craft, easterly 30 knots, and then St. George, St. Paul, southerly push at 20 knots. And then for Wednesday, the Arctic coastline, you have northeasterly flow, predominantly all 15 knots. Then you can small craft as you get along the southwest coastline. That extends down to northerly 25 knots into the Bering Strait here. Then for Thursday, pretty much all predominantly easterly flow 15 knots from Kaktovik all the way to Barrow. And then it's easterly 20 knots going down from Point Lay. You get down to Point Hope, it starts to transition to more northeasterly. And a little weaker northerly as you get to the Bering Strait of 15. Now, for tonight's forecast, again, you'll have that low pressure system sitting over the Seward Peninsula with a trailing stationary front extending along the Brooks Range. Just south of that, you have some isolated thunderstorms associated with this system. And then you're going to have light rain along the Arctic coastline, northeasterly flow. In the Gulf, you have that weak low pressure system with a trough, and they'll bring onshore flow here. So they'll continue to overcast conditions along the southeast panhandle and the northern coastal communities. There's a little break here extending through the Prince William Sound, extending down to Kodiak. Farther inland, you'll have some light rain. Then over the Bering, you're going to have that low pressure system sitting over there just north of Adak, and with the trailing occluded front, cold front, and warm front extending through the central Aleutians. So you'll have a continued southwesterly push and moisture being pumped into the Bering, so continued light rain there. Then for Wednesday's forecast, that low pressure system sitting over just east of Kotzebue will remain there and just gradually fill, with a weak trough extending north and a weak trough extending south into the YK Delta region. You'll have scattered showers with that and isolated thunderstorms through the lower Kuskokwim Valley and north of the Alaska range. Farther north, you have that northeasterly flow with a high pressure sitting over the Beaufort Sea. You have some fog and some light rain. And then here's that strong storm force low that's starting to put in, that cooler low that's starting to push into the western Aleutians. So you'll see that strong southwesterly push there with continued rain and stratus and plenty of cloud cover and moisture being pumped into the western Aleutians. Then the central Aleutians, with that weak low pressure system that's sitting there that'll gradually fill, bringing moisture into the central Aleutians and the Bering, central Bering. So you'll have some rain and fog in that area. Along the southeast panhandle, the low pressure system will be sitting there and gradually filling, continuing onshore flow. So look for scattered showers into the southeast panhandle, extending over into the Anchorage Bowl region, as well as southwesterly push, bringing up plenty of moisture into the Kodiak region and the interior waters there. For Thursday's forecast, the low pressure system will be parked over the Kotzebue region there near Selawik, with the cold front extending down into the northern Bering. And then you have the stationary front that's moving along this south of the Brooks Range, with extending to a weak low pressure system sitting over Fairbanks. You have continued isolated thunderstorms again in the region just south of that, extending down into the lower Kuskokwim Valley. With this, you're going to have strong southwesterly push, plenty of moisture being pumped up into the northern coastal communities as well as southeast panhandle. So look for continued light rain throughout the Thursday day and evening. South of the Dixon entrance, you have this high pressure system ridge that'll move eastward, and you'll have nice sunny skies as you go farther south. Then over the Bering, you have that occluded system that's sitting there that will continue to fill. You have the weak occluded front extending down into the eastern Aleutians. That'll bring southwesterly flow in here. Weak trough pushing in, scattered showers there. And you have a warm front that's extending just south of eastern Aleutians. And this will bring a little swath of moisture into this region. And this is it for your marine forecast and your other forecasts.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.